right, morning to all the friendly looking black boxes out there. Again, I'm Megan Couts, the Construction Engineering and LRHIP Manager here at LTAC. I've been in the construction role here for about 8 years. I know I've worked with quite a few of you in that realm. Over the last year, as Layla's been transitioning into her administrator role, I've started to help with the LRHIP program. In March, I took over administration of that program. So that's what I'll talk to you about today. So the source of this funding, we take $5 million in federal aid rural funds and exchange those with ITD for $4 million in state fund grants. So that exchange rate's 80 cents on the dollar. What that does for us is that washes the federal aid requirements off of that money, allows you to spend that money a lot more freely. The rules or the sideboards of this program, these grants are available to rural jurisdictions only. I'll show you in a little bit here. You can verify your classification as a rural jurisdiction. We've got a list posted to our website. Local agencies must be collecting taxes or have an alternate source of funding. Grant funds cannot be used for employee wages, equipment reimbursement, or engineering fees. The one exception to paying engineers with these funds is if you get a transportation plan grant, we would expect you to hire an engineer and pay that engineer with these grant funds. So the one thing to remember with this is you can't pay yourselves with this money. State procurement rules must be followed, just like with your other projects. And these applications are scored by a combination of our council and staff. 4, technically 5 eligible uses of these funds. The first and most popular are construction projects. This accounts for about 75% of those grant funds. You can apply for up to $100,000. Needs to be put towards a road or bridge project. Keep in mind with these that your project can have drainage and pedestrian facilities, but it can't be exclusively drainage or pedestrian facilities. So don't just apply for sidewalk, but if your roadway project has some sidewalk on it, that's okay. A subset of the construction projects category is a federal aid match category. So you can apply for up to $100,000 towards a federal aid project that requires local match. We reserve a minimum of $200,000 in this category each year. And I can tell you last year, nobody applied for it. So this is definitely an underutilized category. Keep this in mind as you move forward in your federal aid projects. The next is signs. Where Brian and Kevin can't get you lighted signs, if you're a rural jurisdiction, we can get you lighted and flashing signs in this grant program. So you can apply for up to $30,000 towards sign replacement for warning and regulatory signs and pavement markings. Next, transportation plans. So it's important to our council that your transportation plan be kept current. And as you apply for things like construction grants, you'll notice that that's actually a scoring criteria. You can apply in this category for a new plan if your jurisdiction's never had a plan, up to $50,000. Plan updates are funded up to $30,000. And this category accounts for about 15% of this program's grant funds. The last and kind of the unique outlier category is emergency funding. Excuse me. So we reserve $400,000 annually for emergency grant funds. You can apply for up to $100,000 towards an active emergency. So these funds can't be used towards mitigation projects. If you've got a hillside or a bridge that you're really concerned is going to go, but it hasn't yet, we couldn't use these funds towards that. Once that hillside slides or that bridge goes out, that would be the time to apply. And this application is open year round, anytime. How to apply. So on our website, ltac.org, programs, LRHIP, we've got our 24 application packet posted. It's posted in a couple different ways. The first link that you'll see towards the middle of the page is the entire application packet. So that's everything you could ever want to know about every grant in this program. I would encourage you maybe not to use that application. It's a lot to digest. If you know what kind of grant you're going for, I would encourage you to just pull that application. So in the bullets towards the center of the page, you can see the different applications: construction, federal aid match, signs, and transportation plans. On this page, you can also see towards the bottom, a list where you can verify if you are considered a rural jurisdiction, and also if you're on the federal or the fiscal year 24 construction and federal aid match hiatus list, which I forgot to mention. So if you get a construction grant, you'll be put on a hiatus list for the next year, just meaning that you can't get a construction grant 2 years in a row. So if you're unsure if you received a construction grant last year, check this hiatus list and make sure that you're not included there. A couple things that are new this year. Kevin already touched on, we're requesting additional copies from years past. So the LRHIP program, we get between 80 and 90 applications a year. So again, that administrative burden of making copies for our council and staff is pretty heavy. We're asking that you submit 4 copies this year. And we're also requiring a physical jurisdiction address. So a lot of you operate off of PO boxes, which usually works great. In our case, when we send you your grant checks, we FedEx those checks, and FedEx requires a physical jurisdiction address. So in this case, when we're ready to send your check, we'll have that information ready. Also new this year, we reformatted the application checklist. Historically, it was sometimes difficult to tell in a box where we were looking for an answer from you and where somebody else was going to take care of that response. So what we've done is we've grayed out any boxes that we're not looking for you to respond to. Excuse me. You'll see a fillable form in any boxes that we need an answer from you. The thing to remember here is if you can't provide a response, we didn't intend you to. Also new, a couple things related to the road and street report. We don't actually get physical copies of your road and street report like we have historically. We just get a big data dump from ITD. So on line 65, where you report funds specified and saved for future projects, we're just asking now that you provide a list of those projects with values that we can verify. We're also asking that you let us know if you've amended your road and street report. We found last year that in that data dump, if a road and street report was amended, we didn't necessarily get that data, which affects your scoring. So if you let us know here that you've amended your road and street report, we can go out and look for that amended data and make sure that we're scoring your application based on the latest information. T2 training, a question that we've always had in the past, you get credit for your full-time staff that's taken T2 credits. We have all of the transcripts for T2 classes taken. The thing that we don't have is information on who is currently employed in your organization. So what we're asking is for a list of current full-time employees that you're asking credit for that have taken classes. Key points. So a few things that we noticed last year, tips and tricks, if you will. Keep in mind that involvement in multi-jurisdictional groups is really important. Over and over, we would see folks just attend a multi-jurisdictional group in November, right before applications are due. So make sure you're keeping this on your radar year round. We ask for up to 3 letters of support for your project. What we really mean is submit 3 letters of support. If you submit any less than 3, you sacrifice up to half of the points available for that question. Pavement and sign management inventory. This scores best if that information, if that inventory is kept current. That's not to say that the entire inventory needs to be updated in the year, but keep in mind that you should have at least a few of your road segments, a few of your sign segments, sections updated in time for the application, so a reviewer can see that you're actively working through that inventory. We require a transportation plan and a capital improvement plan. Keep in mind, these are 2 different documents. So don't just turn in the cover sheet of your transportation plan for both of these questions. Your capital improvement plan should be an ever-evolving, a living list of projects being taken off as they're completed and projects being added as they're needed. Don't resubmit an unedited prior year's application that was not successful. If you were not successful and didn't score well in the past, the likelihood of not scoring well in turning in that same application is high. If you're in that boat, give me a call. We can go through maybe what didn't go so well in the scoring in the past, and we can work through some ideas to maybe improve that application going forward. Answer each question. Before you turn your application in, please make sure that you check that each question has an answer. Finally, repeat project applications score higher. So if you've submitted an application on a project in the past and you resubmit on that same project, you get points for that. So in this case, persistence pays off. Project closeout. So once you've been awarded a grant and you've been able to complete your project, we ask you for what we call a project document summary. It's really high level project information that allows us to close out your project. We ask that you submit before and after photos with that form, and that your mayor or chairman sign that form for you. One thing to keep in mind, in 22, our council adopted a policy that requires LRHIP funds to be spent 3 years after their award. If those funds aren't spent, the council actually reserves the right to request those funds back. So make sure that you're really keeping it a priority to spend these funds. Extensions are still allowed. The one change is, I know if you worked with Layla historically, a quick email could get your extension granted. The council's after something a little bit more formal now. So we would look for a letter on your letterhead, again, signed by your mayor or chairman, letting us know maybe why it's taken a little bit longer to spend the funds and how much longer you think you need to get those funds spent. Timelines. So like we talked about, the application is posted now. It's due December 1st by 3 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Mountain in our office. If you're mailing those, the postmark date is the same, December 1st. I'll take those applications to our December council meeting. I'll send council and staff home with those to score. I'll present scores to the council in March for their consideration and hopefully approval. After that March meeting, I'll be able to let you know if you were awarded or if you were unsuccessful in these grants. Keep in mind that even though you'll find out next spring that you were successful, those funds won't become available until the fall of next year. So just like this year, if you have an FY23 grant, we still don't have that money yet. We hope to soon. If you're ready for your FY23 grant and you want to get on the waiting list, I've got a list going, so you could shoot me a quick email and I can get you on that. I think you want to take the question, Jake.
Yeah, so you did already mention the timeline for expenditure of LRHIP grants, but Chelsea James did have a question in the chat here, specifically asking about the federal aid match program. What is the timeline that money would need to be spent on that?
Great question. So a few timelines tied to that federal aid match. You have to have been awarded the project already. It has to be within 2 years of construction, and it would have to be spent within 3 years of us awarding that grant to you. Again, stuff comes up. I know things happen. If we need to talk extension, we can definitely do that. Anything else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Megan.